Hello, beauties. All right, this is being live streamed officially on Facebook. So I'm really excited to be here. I wrote the question post a little bit last minute. So if you're seeing it now, or if you're seeing this, and you're wondering what it's about, I'm going to talk about that right now. And then if you have any questions, go ahead and just post them in the video comments or on the question thread that I posted in the group. So welcome all fiercely aligned women in my group, and everyone who's watching my YouTube channel will watch the replay on Natural Sanity Mama, where this interview will eventually go. And I'm super, super excited to have with me today a beautiful guest, and we're going to be talking about my most favorite topic ever. So welcome today, Anu Gosai, and I'm going to give a little intro to who she is and what she does. So Anu is a pharmacist and a menstrual health coach, which I love that combination. She runs women's circles, CDG workshops, which we'll talk about what that is because I don't even know. And she offers feminine health coaching. And so I love that so much. And I actually reached out to Anu because I want to speak about how do we live in unison and tandem and synchronicity with our menstrual cycle. How do we, as women, as moms, how do we actually honor our cycles and not feel like we're constantly running against the grain, or we're constantly exhausted, or we're constantly kind of confused, or we're emotional and it catches us off guard, right? So how do we prevent being caught off guard and actually just live in unison with our cycle? And I feel like in that there's a lot of traditions that used to exist in many cultures all over the world that were left behind or lost. And so can we revive those in the Western world and actually to live better lives for women? So welcome, Anu, and you can give us your extended introduction of yourself and let us know where you're from and how you got to doing this work. So that story to begin with is always my most favorite. Like, how did you discover this is important for you, and how did you fall in love with it? And tell us all about you.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So my name is Anu Gosai. Most people call me Anu because it's a very long name. I'm in South Africa, so I've been here for a while. I'm originally from Mauritius. I came actually to South Africa to study pharmacy. But my journey started in 2016, a year after I became a mom. So I'm a mom of two girls, 7 years old and 1 year old, which you might hear in the background will come at some stage in this interview. So
looking forward to meeting them.
In 2016, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disorder. And that kind of prompted me into the whole self-healing journey, where, as you've mentioned, I'm a pharmacist. And despite taking meds, I wasn't getting the results that I was wanting. I was still tired, and I would just lay on the couch, couldn't play with my daughter, and she was 1. So it was really being a mom that kind of prompted me to dive deeper. So the more I checked, I changed the way I eat, and then I would see, my menstrual cycle is changing, my overall health is better. And eventually, through the healing journey, I decided I'm going to go off the pill, because being a pharmacist, I was thinking about how I was experiencing anxiety, feeling super emotional, angry, a few things, and realized, oh my goodness, I'm having a lot of the side effects of being on the contraceptive pill, which I decided to stop, and then kind of started researching what are the other options available. And that's how I became aware of menstrual cycle living, everything natural, and learning about cycles. So I've been practicing living in sync with my cycle since 2020, and it's been such a blessing, because I feel like this year is the second year, full year, that I'm living in sync with my cycle, and I don't feel that I'm burning out, because I've been respecting the periods of rest and creativity, and I find that's really helped me, and also kind of understand myself as a mom and in my marriage as well, that if I feel a certain way, it's like not that something my husband did wrong, it's just I'm just feeling, I need a break, guys, or I need a moment. So I think I've talked to many moms, and they always ask me, oh, you have so much energy, how do you do it? I'm like, live in sync with your cycle. So
I love that so much.
Yeah, so that's my story. So, and I so much so that I really love when love working with clients, and most women who will tell me afterwards when we finish is, why didn't we learn this when we first got our periods?
Yes.
And that's where the CDG workshops come in, where it means Celebration Day for Girls,
Oh,
which is
wow.
a company, like a workshop founded in Australia in 2000, and I recently finished that training. So this is like a first period positive preparation for
Oh, I
girls.
love that.
Yeah, it's like teaching them about their bodies. So it's not like it's educating them about their cycles, what we're going to be talking about, but like a milder versions and just like a celebration so that they go in prepared into this journey. So I felt that's like my biggest contribution I can make is like changing the next generation.
Oh my gosh,
So
yes.
that's what I kind of that's what the CDG thing was about.
I love that. My goodness. Yeah. I just recently, I'm part of this women's container that, we are learning all about our cycles and we're kind of doing intuitive movement and I'm learning a lot about the cycles right now. And so it's kind of divided. I don't know if this is how you do it, but you divide it into like the four phases of the moon and you kind of go based on that. And just recently we did a kind of a ritual ceremony type thing around our first menstrual cycle. And so we were to think back and like, okay, what was that like? And to be honest, I didn't even really remember much. And not only that, I didn't remember when the first period was, but I just remember all I knew is that I was gonna get it and blood was gonna come. And that is all. Like I don't remember anybody telling me anything else besides, you might have some cramping, it might suck. This is what women get at some point and it sucks and just deal with it and live with it. And it's so sad because I feel like only in my 30s am I coming to this honoring place where it's like, okay, wow, it's like this beautiful gift. And how do we honor it? How do we live with it in a way that you're not just like, well, it's that crappy time of the month again? And so I absolutely love this work. And my very first time kind of learning about people actually live this way was really recently. It was like last year. My business coach, who is not spiritual by any means, but she said something like, "Yeah, I totally synchronize my business with my period," and I'm like, "Oh, that's a thing. Like people do this." And
I
she's,
do this, yes.
"I'm busy, baby. You gotta go upstairs and be with daddy." Okay, that's not nice. But thanks for telling me though. Um, threw the cat down the stairs. That doesn't sound good. So, so yeah. So, what was I talking about? First moon.
Yeah, with your business coaching, aligning your
Yeah, and
business.
so this like really,
I did it.
I had a light bulb moment. I was like, oh my gosh, why don't more people do this? And this is a thing. Like people actually live in accordance to their cycle and it optimizes their life, it optimizes their business, it allows them to feel like, oh, that's why I'm feeling tired right now. Like it's explainable. It's not like there's something wrong with me. And so yeah, so let's get into it. Let's get into what you teach, like where do you start with women when you introduce this and in your women's circles and like where do you begin?
So with Women's Circle, I like to do themes. So far I've done like one with, for example, just going like the overall cyclical living. So maybe that's where I'll start.
Yeah, it's simple.
Once the women know, then we do like each season, and then that's what
Okay.
we're doing in our pod locally. I've done this like general one. We did inner winter, which I'll talk about. We'll do the different one, and then
Yes.
we'll split it
Seasons.
with celebration for everybody. So it's just like the big part with cyclical living, besides aligning our calendar, is really like the embodiment of it. It's like really tuning in
Mm.
our bodies. So for those who are new to it, with our menstrual cycle from a science perspective, there's four different phases. Like we have menstruation, pre-ovulation, ovulation, and premenstrual. So when we talk about cyclical living, if you think about the cycles in nature, you get winter, summer, spring. It's similar. So we have the inner winter, which is our periods, and then we have inner spring, which is our inner spring is the pre-ovulation,
Mm.
and then ovulation is our inner summer, and the premenstrual is inner autumn. So what basically from a physical perspective, our hormones is changing, and that's why also we feel for different food, our mood is changing, and just energy, our energy level is not the same. So we've been so conditioned in a world that's designed mostly for men that we need to be on the go, that many of us feel we need to be on the go. But I've learned with time that living in sync with a cycle, we can plan things around a cycle in such a way that support us not to burn out. Because the biggest um, I would say challenge is for us moms who run a business, who have a work, whatever. We all have so many things. Is that we always in that thing of on the go, and it's like the cortisol level, the stress level ends up actually, if it's too high, end up affecting our menstrual cycle. So, from a perspective of like when I work with clients, for instance, often women come if they have a physical challenge with their menstrual cycle, and I embrace that in because I feel that's the most supportive way. So, for example, if you want to, I would like to give a few practical tips. So, if you have your calendar, whether you do a diary or Google Calendar, I would suggest you bookmark and make a note in your diary already when is you going to get your periods, and if you use an app when you ovulate, and to plan your activities according to that. So you would want to plan less things around your periods time, because that's a time like it's, and even before is a time like your body naturally is in like rest mode. So you want to be in that flow. So maybe that would not be the time when I would plan like a peak project when I need to do something super intensive, but maybe more towards the ovulation time when I'm like, who's super hyped up, I've got that energy. That would be a time where I plan my kids' play dates around there. So if I always have a choice of I'm planning with other moms for an activity, I'll rather choose that. But if, for example, I want to have a one-on-one time with my daughters, I'll do it like maybe just before my menstrual time, because I feel I need that connection and bonding with my daughter, because that nourishes me. Then I'll do that. Like yesterday, I did took my daughter out as a mommy and daughter day. That fills my cup, but I can't be around a lot of people. So we can plan things like that. So it's nice to just try it out different things, and it works differently. So that's like so far, what are some of the practical tips you can do? Even the big thing with, especially during your period time, the key is boundaries and for yourself. So
Yes.
maybe, as you may, I think you had asked me about, for your community, moms are always busy, got things to do. We can't always take that time out to rest
Yeah.
fully, because some women I know, they will do like a little mini retreat during that time, but maybe not possible for everybody. But it's about finding ways that we can do for ourselves. So I had one of the ladies attended the women's circle last month. She shared with me how she had just did a few things differently to just see how she can rest. She's a stay-at-home mom. Well, she worked from home. She got her own business, and she's got two kids. And she shifted her calendar around, and she sent me a message to say it's the first time ever she didn't have cramps, her periods days changed, and it's like she did a
Wow.
few things simple, and I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. So just by maybe decreasing the amount of things, maybe there's 5 things on your to-do list, maybe you say, okay, I can only do 3 things. So
Yeah.
it's not about not pushing yourself too much. And if uh, you can't take the time off, is really like looking what can we shift to the next day, or
Right.
shuffle things around. So it really comes down to, for me, it's about getting your dates and planning around it.
Yeah, and I love that because I feel like as moms, and I spoke to this before when I first created this group, we kind of have to be time magicians anyway. We kind of have to find time for the things if we truly want to do something in our day besides being a caregiver, we have to create time. We have to like manifest time almost because it seems like we never have it. And so this shuffling around of our lives to optimize our time just seems like a perfect thing. Like it's something that is going to help us. It's not going to detract from our life. It's going to optimize our life. And I love what you said about little shifts and little habits, because that's something that I also like. I feel like every single woman that comes on here to talk, it's always the same idea. We don't want to tell people, women, moms, anyone, that okay, you have to make this huge drastic change, like completely turn your life around, and then you'll be happy. It's like that's not sustainable for a lot of
It's
us.
not.
No,
Yeah.
like
I
with
think,
anything, with nutrition, with exercise, with this kind of stuff, right? Start small. And I feel
mm,
like the momentum of, oh my God, this is changing my life, those little shifts, you're going to want to go deeper and explore deeper, which I feel like is what you did, right? You were like, you got off the pill and you're like, whoa. And it put you on this journey, right?
yes, yes, and I think for me, like at the start, many of the things that I do is mostly like from for my own healing, and then I got this download from source saying I must help other women with their
Yeah.
womb, and that is what kind of prompted me to, okay, I'm ready to coach women. But I've been on this journey. I mean, like since 2016,
Yeah.
with the from the nutrition perspective of it. So not many things are very different with like menstrual cycles, but in terms of like really living in sync with it, um, and then so much so that because coming off the pill, I went had super long cycles, super long like it confused me, and that's how I got introduced to yoni steaming, and
Yeah.
that's
Tell
also
me about that.
something. Yeah, so yoni steaming is a traditional self-care practice where you use a hot pot of water to steam the womb. So it increases circulation in your womb space. So that's good for women who have all sorts of menstrual cycle problems like long cycle, short cycle, maybe fibroids, endo. It really supports. So the main thing with yoni steaming is knowing when to do it. So again,
Mm.
if you live in sync with your cycle, then you can do it. If you know you're going to get your periods this day, you can steam 3 days before and
Wow.
3 days after. So not only it supports circulation in your womb, but I find for myself that energetically just helps to feel lighter. I cannot describe it from a science perspective, but I just feel it's created so much shift. So
Hmm.
because I think of menstrual cycle from a like science perspective, it's like the shedding of the lining of the
Right.
uterus, but also energetically, it's like you're releasing it's a start of a cycle, it's the start of a cycle. But my perspective is, if with anything new in life, you need to make space for it. So
Hmm.
with the yoni steaming, I find that it's like part of the release or cleansing,
Yeah.
clearing out energetically, if I can
It's
call
the
it.
death, but the death in a good sense. Like you're peeling away layers so that you can then be reborn, right? Like the next week.
Yeah. And it is like that. And with living in sync with your cycle, that I found over time is the more rest I do, and rest doesn't mean to like sit and do nothing. It can be like gentle walk. It's more about being mindful of what you're doing. Like the one lady I was speaking, she lives in Europe, and she was telling me in London, they all walk everywhere. But what she started doing is when she's walking, she's just walking at a slower pace,
Mm-hmm.
slower than other people. So then there's like my mentor, one of the ladies, she says that it's all about dropping the standard during your periods. It's not you
Mm-hmm.
cook a free star dinner, free course dinner for supper, but maybe something different. So for me, for example, for many years I've been
Leftovers.
doing, yeah, like because like for us maybe then would not be the time to try a new recipe. Maybe you'll stick to your standard foolproof recipe of,
Yep.
or you'll ask your partner, or if you got support, somebody to cook for you if you can.
Yeah.
Like it's, I feel the big thing with cyclical living is it's asking for support when
Yeah.
you need it. And sometimes it's helping your loved ones, like what you need, like, oh, I need help with the kids maybe when for an hour, I need to rest for 30 minutes, or I need to take a power nap, or I don't feel like cooking, I don't have the energy to cook. So the more
Yeah.
you rest during of the first few days of your cycle, you'll find that you have more energy to rest. And the more that you do, it gains like that momentum of of honoring your body. Like I know for myself, like this week, I'd even forgotten that on Friday is a new moon, and I was feeling so lethargic. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, it's the end of the year. It's been an amazing year, but why am I feeling so critical? And that's really the season, like inner autumn, is actually always the inner autumn. That premenstrual phase is the reason that prompted me to even dive deeper. Why am I feeling this way? So during that premenstrual phase, we call it, yeah, inner autumn, and the inner critic's voice is the most
Mm.
loudest. Um, so inner critic can be anything from, I find generally I become more critical of everything during this season. So for myself,
Me
I'm
too.
very aware that if I'm going to a parent teachers meeting, I bet I'm in awareness, because I will admit it that wasn't at my best behavior once I went to parent teachers meeting, and I was in my inner autumn, and I got very defensive about what comments were made. And it wasn't anything bad. It was just, and I just took it to another level. So cyclical living for me, it's like really bringing awareness
Awareness.
of to
Yeah.
that. Oh my goodness, like, because a lot of things become amplified. Like you see, love, like through these like magnetized, because a big thing with the premenstrual phase is often a reflection of what has happened through the whole cycle. So
Mm.
maybe that's a time that's good to journal. Oh,
Yeah.
I did this worked. I did this, didn't really work, but it's okay. It roll over to the next cycle. So it brings like an awareness of um what has happened and the way forward. So
Wow.
I tell my clients sometimes that during that phase you must make your pissed off list
Yeah.
and everything you're not so happy about, so that when you set your intentions in a new moon, then you can see, oh, but these are the things I'm not so impressed with. Maybe these are some of the things that I would like to do differently in my next cycle.
Yes, I love that so much. I'm glad you said that, the awareness piece, because that has been my kind of journey. So the last several months, I've become more aware, just through this like process of being really interested in living in tune with my cycle. And so, yeah, that awareness. And I laughed when you said inner critic, because me and my friend were just talking about this yesterday, how we actually went away to like a spa together, and it was the day before my period. And oh my goodness, so we went to a restaurant there, and I was I was like, oh wow, I'm really critical of this waitress and the service that I'm getting at this restaurant. Like, granted, she was a little bit like in a rush, and I was really annoyed that she wasn't giving me the time to place my order, right? But I was like, oh wow, I'm really critical. And then we talked about it like just the other day. We're like, yeah, like totally, that's the time when you're the most like kind of snappy or critical or whatever. And it's just good to be aware that like you said, it's not necessarily the people around you. Maybe they have something to do with it, right? But you know maybe your husband's not doing anything that bad. You're just like super aware and critical of every single thing he does do. And so this makes sense why we need to kind of like go into a recluse. And like I remember reading anthropological accounts, how women would be in certain cultures and tribes, they were put into little huts during their menstrual cycle. And I remember in my 20s, my early 20s, or even I was on like 19 or something when I was in university, but I was like, oh my gosh, like this is awful. Like women are ousted from society just because they're bleeding. And now as a mom and understanding so much more and deeper, I'm like, oh my God, these are sacred practices. We should definitely have this again. Like I would love to be in a yurt or a tent by myself during my period, like to just
Yes.
with my journal. Oh my goodness. So I would love to talk about some more of this kind of like what was practiced in the past, and like why did we lose it, and how can we gain some of that back, but keeping in mind that I guess the Western world and everything is very different now. Like how do we bring that back in a way that is cohesive? If you have anything to say about
Yeah,
that.
I think from a history perspective, there is a modern movement now called the Red Tent. So back in the
Oh
old
yeah,
days,
the
as you
right.
mentioned, women would gather. The, yeah, they would gather when they bleed, but it was more. I know there's a different perspective. Like maybe myself, I would have seen it as women being excluded. But if you look at from a perspective of rest, where
Hmm.
from what I've heard and read is during that time women would gather, even the children,
Yeah.
and the men would look after the house. So they were given that time
Yeah.
and space to bleed together.
Love
And
that.
then you get women who bleed with the full moon or women who bleed on the new moon. So the one who were bleeding during a new moon, the other one who do not bleed, who bleed on the other moon, they would look after these women. So it was like
Hmm.
in synchronicity of looking
Synchronicity with
after
each
each
other.
other, and that's what kids knew how babies were born because maybe babies were birthed there. So it became like it was a community that looked
Love
after
that.
each other. So I think with patriarchy now, things have changed, and then we when women are together as a collective, it's very powerful. It's believed that when a woman is bleeding, you in the veil between spiritual world and us is very thin. So maybe whatever
Yes.
your faith, you will feel maybe more connected to
Yeah.
God. You want to pray more, the downloads come in closer. So to create time and space is awesome, not just from a physical perspective, but from a spiritual perspective to receive the messages. I find for myself that whenever I like rest, that get more like clarity on things. So that's from a perspective of
Yeah.
it. But again, like if you have it's not always easy to do that nowadays, but
Yeah.
like it's finding ways. For example, you can, if you have a women's circle in your community, you can do, if you have an online circle, it's really good to meet with women. From a science perspective, it's believed that when you meet with other women, it increases your progesterone level, which it's that feel good feeling, and well, not feel good, but it's more like the calm. It's
Yeah.
also responsible for a bit of anxiety, but it's really good for us from on a like uh, from a body, not bodily, like it's good in our bodies to being collective as a woman, but
Yeah.
also as a collective of women we are stronger. So
Yes.
some women even used to go free bleed in the forest, I believe,
Yeah.
so the things that we can do differently is if you have a friend that you can check in, or like you can create a period care. So maybe in your community I can send you the link. You can download. I've created a menstrual health guide to give ideas of period care, of things you can do, for anything from eating nourishing food instead of choosing
Hmm.
cold foods, warm teas versus a cold drink, or
Yeah.
placing a warm bottle. It's really like nourishing your womb. And so different practices you can do, for example, a magnesium bath, Epsom salts on your first day of your
Yes.
nice warm bath. You can take a nice cup of tea. It's just almost like taking a moment to breathe.
Yeah.
Also maybe finding a way to let your partner know, or your kids, if you're at a certain age and you've explained to them, or if you don't want to explain when you're having a period, is like, mom is super tired now, I need a moment to rest. I'm finding that as mothers, especially of girls, I have two girls, is to setting an example that rest is okay. So I've
Yes.
had times my daughter wasn't feeling well, and I say, okay, you don't have to go to school, you can rest it out. Even though I'm a pharmacist, I'm not always quickly to give a medicine. I will say rest and let's see
Yeah.
what happens. Because the body, I've learned, is so powerful. It can
Hmm.
heal itself in so many ways, but we just need to give her a chance to do its thing. So it's the same
Yes.
with the womb as well. So I'm very passionate about this from a living in sync with a cycle, but also in terms of supporting our body, our menstrual cycle, and the womb. So even in
Yeah.
terms of exercise and the food that we eat during our cycles are very different.
Yeah, let's talk
And
about that because I love nutrition. And just recently, I've been tuning into this whole, nutrition around your menstrual cycle because I'm interested and I'm noticing things in myself, right? I'm noticing things that are really upsetting my stomach around my moon time, like crazy, and things that I simply can't eat. And um, I'm wondering, are a lot of these practices based in Ayurveda in terms of nutrition around your period? And yeah, tell us about that. Let's talk about nutrition and even exercise if you want to go there.
yeah, so from a nutrition perspective, with in the yoni steaming course, the peri steam facilitator course, um, we speak more, it's based on traditional Chinese medicine.
Okay.
So a lot of things is related, like anything from underneath, like our lower torso, anything from under our boobs, all the way to our womb, everything is interconnected. So in terms of
Mm.
food, for example, for a woman who maybe has a heavy bleeding versus somebody who has a short period, somebody who has fibroids, different food recommend there are different food recommendation and lifestyle changes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. For example, if I have a client um, who maybe they have a lot of symptoms of excess estrogen, which can
Mhm.
show up. Maybe somebody who has heavy periods. Let's take somebody who has heavy periods, for
Yeah.
example. Often that's a sign of like a lot of estrogen. So then I would say you need to eat more fiber because we need to absorb this excess estrogen and then you're gonna excrete it out. So
Mhm.
even in terms of hormone balance, food plays such a big
Yeah.
role, and our
Yes.
gut health is all interlinked. So during our period, it's more about eating warm, nourishing food and really avoiding the cold things, even like a cold sandwich, a
Mhm.
smoothie. It's all about warmth and bringing
Mhm.
flow, nourishment to the body.
I love that. Yes. I learned about a lot about this during postpartum, that postpartum time where we bleed for a long time, right? After having our kids. And I've kind of been implementing a lot of that nutritional protocol around my period, and it's really helped me. So like soups and broth and
Yes.
using animal products around that time really helps me as well. But definitely the warmth. I feel like, yeah, I can't eat anything cold basically ever
That's
now, but around the time specifically. Yeah.
Yes, no, definitely. Around that time, you're absolutely on point because even like our postpartum is considered an
Yeah.
inner winter. It's similar to a period,
Yeah.
but that's why it's so long. And like that's something I want to really educate moms, new moms, is about those 40 days postpartum is like how your
Mhm.
periods are for. It's I know it's look like you expected to get back into the swing of things and to be out and about with the baby, but from a restoring your own body and on long-term effect on your body, it's
Yeah.
best to rest and eat those things like soup, broths, and just like warmth really, really helps. And the other times is more, for example, during ovulation time when you have like lots of energy, then maybe you're going to do a high intensity exercise like a hike versus choosing like a stretch or gentle walk during your periods. And in terms of food, maybe choosing healthy fats during your
Mhm.
ovulation and maybe premenstrual, because then you don't have the cravings, because the cravings is also
Mhm.
something hormonal imbalance that we look at. So
Yeah.
there's like different angles to it with living in
Yes.
sync with your cycle. And
There's a
that's
lot of
exactly
information there.
and that's exactly what I help women with, so that it becomes a lifestyle and
Yeah.
sustainable to go through. Because as women, um, we start with puberty and our cycles change a lot. Then we get our main menstruating years. Then late 30s, early 40s, we hit perimenopause. So many women think menopause, oh, for the older ladies, but I'm seeing many women who maybe had period problem. They went for a hysterectomy,
Mhm.
and then they don't have a uterus, they don't have ovaries, and they're in a full blown menopause, and they're not aware of that. So
Mm.
we have these like rites of passage, menarche, our first
Yes.
periods, motherhood, and menopause. So then things also change the years leading up to menopause. So I feel like our bodies are constantly changing as women, and
Yes.
it's like keeping up with. So I think the more understanding you have about what's happening, it's reassuring in terms of thinking this is normal, not thinking what's wrong with me. So
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love we're always shifting and we're all also individuals. So like you said, somebody that has really heavy bleeds or specific hormonal systems or issues, they would need slightly different protocols or slightly different nutrition. And yeah, so we're all different amongst one another.
mm,
We bleed at different times, but also, yeah, like there's things we can generally speak to that are really, really helpful during that time. And so yeah, if you would like to hear like your specific, if you would like to address your specific issues and your specific menstrual journey, then Anu is the perfect person to do that with. And okay, before we go deeper, not deeper, before we ask you where people can find you and work more closely with you, I have one more question, and it's about blood. Do you have any kind of idea with regards to like blood color, blood consistency? Like, can you easily tell that you're missing a nutrient, or can you necessarily tell if you're like some sort of having a hormonal imbalance just by the color of your blood? Like you said, like people used to free bleed in the woods. Like, is this, and like, so your blood is considered in some cultures like this very sacred thing, right? And it's like almost fuel or food for Mother Earth. And that's like something that's, we're so disconnected from that now, right? Like most women don't really think that. It just like goes in the toilet and that's where it goes. And so, yeah, I would love to also speak to that a little bit, because I love that idea that this is like actually like sacred food for the earth. And we can learn a lot just by looking at our blood and being introspective instead of being afraid of it. So, do you have
Yes,
anything to say about that?
I do have lots of info about the blood. So I actually do ask my clients when they fill the questionnaire, what color is the blood? What's it?
Okay,
Because
yeah, yeah. So it's a common one.
it is like I need to know. And I always say to people, I will ask you very intimate questions
Mm,
about your blood. So
yeah,
don't not freak. I'm just trying to understand. So what
yeah,
we want to see, well, this is not diagnosing anybody, but what we
yeah.
want to see is like fresh red blood,
Mhm,
with no like big clots.
mhm.
Some women do get clots, but it's concerning if you're passing large clots, because then it's like blood stuck together. So like a darker blood, often it's if you think of iron,
Yeah.
like it, yeah, if it changes from a red to a darker red, so like
Mhm.
going through, so there's lots of blood stuck in your uterus. Often that will be like
Okay.
darker red. And many people say also that like it's estrogen. If you have lots of estrogen in your body, that can also show up. But generally, when somebody tells me they have fresh red blood and then they don't pass blood, I'm like, yes,
Mhm.
you seem to have a good flow. So what would be concerning would be maybe somebody who's passing large clots and going through more than 6 pads per day,
Okay.
and bleeding more than 7 days. So that's kind of would be concerning. To be very honest with you, I paid attention to have to think about my blood, and then I realized, oh, my menstrual cycle. Only now I think about it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I should have looked a bit better. But in terms of practices, so in the olden days, some women give blood to
Okay.
the, so there'd be, if you use a menstrual cup, you can put water, dilute it in some water. You can even water your garden, your plants,
Love that.
you give back to Mother Earth. And if you have a sanitary pad, you use cloth pads. You can rinse it in cold water and throw that water also in your garden. So
Mm.
that's some of the, besides the free bleeding, some people do that. I've also heard of some one of my mentors. She shared with me. It was actually, yeah, she shared with us in the class that one of the people she was teaching from one of the cultures, the young girls, when they come of age, they get given a portion of land to look after and grow their own vegetables. And then they were
Mm.
told that they would give their blood back to Mother Earth. And then the boys wouldn't understand why their plants, their vegetables were growing better. So it was because of that.
I love
And
it.
I've also attended another talk where the one lady shared that when you give your not earth, your blood back to Mother Earth, um, if you're growing vegetables, it can detect, because that's biodata. It can know what are you deficient in, and then you get that back, what you need. The
Wow.
plant will get it more, and you then eat it. So I haven't tested it out, but these are some of the line of thinking people have shared with me, that these are some of the beliefs around the world. So yeah, that's for me like so amazing.
Oh yeah, I freaking love that. And I'm definitely gonna start doing that because, if you use the Diva cup, it's really easy. It's already captured for you. You just put it in a cup, mix it with some water, and pour it on your vegetables. I love that so much. Thank
giving
you
back
so
to that.
much. Frankly, I could ask questions about this forever, but I will be very you've been very generous and with your responses and information and value and time. So I'm so grateful. And yes, and I just want people to know where they can find you, where they can work more closely with you. So a lot of your groups that you host, women's circle groups, are those all local or do you have some that are also virtual?
Um, Most are local, but in the new year, I'll be having an online one
Cool.
because I want to reach out to more women to
Yes.
experience that. So you can find me on my profile, my Facebook profile, Anu Gosai. And then if you're on Instagram, my business is redbutterfly.menstrualcycles. So
Love that.
that's me. Yeah, red butterfly for if you think of the butterfly, you come from a caterpillar and then you become a butterfly.
Yes.
And for me, that
Transformation.
has been, I feel that's like the biggest way to describe my uh, becoming a butterfly was like I was in a little caterpillar a long time. And then through the womb journey,
You've
yeah, so
blossomed.
redbutterfly.menstrualcycles. I'm on Instagram, but my profile, my Facebook profile that you've tagged me is where you can find me. And I do one-on-one programs and I do have everything, most of the things customized because each woman is
Yeah.
different where you are at and different needs. So
Yeah.
it's not like a set thing
That makes a
and
lot of
yeah,
sense.
it's like new moon circles is the thing that I want. But I hold a lot of work, like training in my Facebook group
Okay.
about women would ask like about things, or if I get a query about the same things from many women, then I do a training on
Okay.
that in the group. So yeah.
That sounds amazing. Okay, so send me all of those links so I can post them in the group and women can follow you and follow your incredible knowledge that you have. And I'm honestly so grateful that I found you. I'm glad I posted in the in the podcast collaboration group because this is a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. And I was finally like, okay, yes, I'm ready. This is the time. And I wanted to know a little bit more about it myself before interviewing someone as well because I wanted to ask the right questions. And so this was just perfectly timed, and I'm so happy to meet you. And thank you so much for being so generous.
Are you welcome? And thank you so much for the opportunity. It was really lovely to speak to you and share with your community. And yeah, we welcome anytime. Keep well.
Yes,
Thank
I'm going
you.
to stop the live stream.